Now, let's discuss this as well as all election-related information with Lulu White. She's the Chief Executive Officer at Elections Management Consulting Agency of Africa. Lulu, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Unati.
Now, the IEC's inaugural report on political funding only reflected 3 political parties that have declared donations, a total of 30 million or just over 30 million rands there. What's your take on the report? And more importantly, do you think the report really does reflect what's in the political parties' funds?
I think it is a true reflection. I think we need to remember that political parties, in terms of the Political Party Funding Act of South Africa, political parties may receive donations from independent donators. And there's also donations that come from Parliament for those political parties that actually have won seats during elections, whether it's national seats, local government seats. So political parties at level get money also from the state. So the fund, the act is actually there to just make sure that there's no abuse on the part of those people donating to political parties, on political parties have been expected to do certain things that aren't that would not be in the best interest of the country. So I do believe that it is a fair reflection. We do realize that, the ANC and the DA are part of the parties that have really enjoyed a lot of support. And this is the first time, and this is something that we should be celebrating in South Africa, because this is the first time in our history as a country we are able to see which political parties are getting money from which businesses, and we are then able to interrogate what the interest of having those businesses is.
Now, I would imagine 3 parties out of a possible 500 or so parties is dismal. The Funding Act, the Political Funding Act that, as you rightfully said, came into force on the 1st of April, it states that, donors need to, or at least political parties need to disclose to the IEC any amount above 100,000, and that the IEC would then, publish this information every 3 months or so. What do you make of just 3 parties coming, to the party in terms of, disclosing their donations?
Look, we should applaud them for exposing their donations. I think we should. That's why I said earlier that this is something that as a country we should be celebrating, because then we are able to see which political parties are getting what from who and what is the purpose of that. I do, however, share the very same sentiment that you expressed earlier when you said that out of a possible 500 political parties, why only those 3 political parties? We need to understand that businesses are also there. They've got aims and things that they're trying to achieve by funding these political parties. Perhaps it's corporate social responsibility, it's better branding purposes. One can never go to the donor and say, why did you donate that type of money to that political party? What do you want to achieve? But I think we should, as a country, celebrate the fact that it is now for the public consumption, whereas previously it was something that was actually quite hidden.
Now, let's talk about the developments that happened yesterday in announcing the elections date. Yesterday, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma started off, trying to clarify and justify why the IEC's interpretation of the Concord judgment was also to include the opening of the registration of party candidates. Now, we know a number of parties, particularly the DA and the IFP, call this favoritism towards the ANC. But how important was this move by the IEC to also open registration of party candidates, given that the ANC had missed this opportunity?
Look, I think when we look at the decision of the IEC, we actually need to take it in context. Right? And the context that currently exists is the fact that voter registration weekend had to be catered for. After voter registration weekend, there's going to be a process of inspection of those voter registration statuses. And there's a whole lot of other activities in between that need to be taken into account for. And all of that does have an impact in terms of turnaround time and the date of the voting, the actual voting date. The IEC's decision to move the election date from the 27th to the 1st of November, which is the last date that the judgment had actually given to them, was so that they can take advantage of every bit of time that they have in their favor so that they can deliver a credible election. Otherwise, then the election would look rushed, and there's a lot more cracks that people would not be able to pick up. So the decision by the IEC to actually move the election is what led to the amendment of the timetable. Because if you remember, if you look at the Municipal Electoral Act, it actually says that the IEC is allowed to amend a voting date should it deem it necessary. Now, the call for a voter registration weekend has deemed the need for the IEC to amend the election date so that whatever processes that are in line with the voter registration process can then be made, prepared for, and voter registration takes place, and whatever activities that would follow thereafter would therefore take place. So the amendment was a necessary amendment, and that is the amendment of that timetable is the reason why there's now candidate nomination being opened. It is my view that this was not in favor of the ANC. If it was, then perhaps they would have said it's only for the ANC. But everybody that wants to participate in this election is more than welcome to do so, just that they need to make sure that they submit their candidates list or themselves as independents before the closing time of the candidate nomination process.
Now, Lulu, as we wrap up and very quickly, just something that also came out of that briefing yesterday. If you look at all the trends of voting in this country, how important is it to note the change of the day in which voting will actually happen? Example, this time around, we'll be voting on a Monday versus the historic Wednesday. How important is it, especially for those that will be casting their ballots?
I'm not certain as to the importance of the date exactly, or the day. As you mentioned, that we normally vote on a Wednesday. So I'm not quite, versed in terms of why on a Monday instead of a Wednesday. However, what I do know is that the IEC would normally prepare an election timetable to ensure that an election takes place within the 90-day period when a term of office expires. That would then mean that the term of office for has expired for previous councillors, but the 90-day period within which the election should have taken place expires on the 1st of November. And that's the only relevance that I can attest to this. The fact that the 1st of November is the last possible date that the IEC could have had this particular election. If they move beyond the 1st of November, then they've gone out of the legal parameters, and that election can actually be taken to court, and that decision cast aside. So it's literally just a matter of the number of days. Elections normally are supposed to take place within a 90-day period after the term of office expires.
Lulu, always a pleasure speaking to you, and we obviously hope to have you on the show again as we head up to the polls. Lulu White, the Chief Executive Officer at Elections Management Consultancy Agency of Africa. Thank you so much.